Have you ever felt that quiet pull that the world, as it's presented to us, isn't the whole story? We often frame reality as a choice between two sides, science or spirituality, the cold logic of the lab, or the comfort of our beliefs. But what if there was more to it? That split misses the point of an ancient and enduring pursuit we have been on for centuries. This conversation didn't begin as a battleground. It began as a question too important to ignore, and it's one we're still asking today. Metaphysics isn't about what the world is made of or how its mechanisms operate. It delves deeper, probing into what must be true for anything to exist at all, for any mechanism to function, for any observation to hold meaning. It's about the unseen fabric that holds everything together. It asks about the very nature of being, the foundational principles upon which all else rests. Once you begin to grasp this distinction, an uncomfortable realization dawns. We are not merely observers of metaphysics, we are immersed in it, living out its cause and effect daily. Yet, and sadly, we rarely agree on its definition, let alone its profound influence on our lives and our understanding. You've undoubtedly encountered this phenomenon, even if the term metaphysics never crossed your mind. It's that moment when an event occurs, and while you can somewhat explain the how, the sequence of causes and effects, the explanation feels still incomplete. It fails to touch upon the deeper, why does this matter? The significance that resonates within your experience as an individual. Science is very good at explaining how things work. It measures, tests, and checks ideas carefully, and most of the time it's honest about what it doesn't yet know. But underneath all that data and method are deeper assumptions we rarely stop to question, ideas about reality, cause and effect, and what it means for something to exist, including ourselves. Those foundations aren't scientific at all. Consider the bedrock principles science operates upon, that reality possesses a stable, objective existence independent of our perception. That cause and effect is a fundamental, unidirectional force. That time flows linearly and uniformly. These are not scientific discoveries derived from experiments. They are foundational commitments, a priority of beliefs that enable the very possibility of scientific inquiry. Look at it like this. You don't run an experiment to prove that reality exists. You assume it exists in order to run the experiment in the first place. That difference matters, and it's often missed in debates. When it's overlooked, people start treating science and metaphysics as if they're competing. They aren't. Metaphysics doesn't fight science, it supports it. It provides the basic ideas that science stands on, the unseen framework holding up everything we claim to know. At its core, metaphysics asks one big question: what basic rules or conditions need to exist for anything to be real at all? Instead of just making a list of what exists around us, metaphysics digs deeper to examine the very nature of existence itself. What makes it possible? What requirements must be met? And what the deepest, most basic parts of reality actually are. Is reality made only of matter, just particles and forces? Or is it more mental, shaped by consciousness itself? Maybe it's neither, and instead arises from relationships and interactions rather than fixed things. Science measures what happens within reality, but metaphysics asks a deeper question. What kind of reality must already exist for those measurements to make sense, and what hidden assumptions are built into the way we investigate the world? The fact of the matter is simply this: every scientific model and every system based on evidence rests on assumptions it can't test by its very nature. That doesn't weaken science. It actually shows us its honesty. Science works because it stands on deeper philosophical ground it quietly depends on. You see, we don't test whether reality is real. We know it does. We've trusted this since the beginning of time. That trust right there becomes the foundation for every experiment that follows in the lab. So the question becomes, why does this trust feel so natural to us? Why it seems so obvious, shared, and almost impossible to doubt? And this, my friends, is precisely where spirituality often enters the philosophical discourse, frequently sparking immediate contention in some situations. That's not what we are about here. Spirituality, in its many forms, deals with meaning, consciousness, purpose, and transcendence, things that don't fit neatly into a measuring cup. These aren't fixed objects you can weigh or count. They are living, felt experiences, unfolding as dynamic dimensions of being rather than static facts. Check out my other video on dimensions to get a better idea of what I mean. Now it's crucial to understand that authentic spiritual traditions were not born from a desire to escape reality, but from an intense, often rigorous, attempt to comprehend its deepest source and nature itself. Before spirituality became influenced by dogma or belief systems, it was a form of observation, an inward-looking practice, an exploration of one's own subjective experience. Look at practices like meditation. It wasn't just a theory about the mind, but an ancient and refined way of exploring awareness itself, a direct investigation into our consciousness. And prayer, at its original core, isn't about superstition. It's an attempt to build a relationship with what feels most real and responsive, to reach toward your source, or whatever you want to call it, and to enter into connection with it rather than just having mere belief. If you are interested in exploring this subject and more in depth, you can jump to the website. The link is in the channel description. Most of the ebooks there are free, but I am working on deeper, more expansive books that I think this community will genuinely enjoy. Again, the link to the website is in the description. I hope to see you there. Metaphysics, in its broadest sense, occupies this fertile ground between our inner observation and our outer measurements. It's not about embracing the mystical for its own sake, but about acknowledging and investigating those aspects of experience that stubbornly resist material or mechanistic explanations. Historically, metaphysics was never spiritual woo-woo. The word metaphysics comes from Aristotle's writings, but not because he invented some mystical idea. His work on reality and existence was simply placed after his general writings on physics. The phrase meant after physics in a very literal sense at first. Over time it came to mean questions that go beyond physical objects, basic questions about reality itself, without being supernatural or magical. Aristotle asked some excellent questions that are still central today. What causes things to happen? What makes something what it is? How can things change and still remain the same thing? Modern science has answered many of these questions in practical ways within specific fields, but it hasn't removed the deeper philosophical puzzles behind them. Instead, science often works around these questions, building models that predict outcomes without fully settling on what reality ultimately is. So, what does this tell us? It tells us that when science, by design, ceases to ask what reality is at its most fundamental level, metaphysics steps in to ask why that question still matters to us at all. And for us, as humans, we are often driven by a constant curiosity about existence and the nature of reality. We always have been. The persistent echo of these questions reveals a deep-seated human need to understand the nature of all things, big or small, internal and external. There is a blind spot, though, shared by many. We tend to diminish metaphysics to an abstract academic venture, a niche for philosophers to debate, or a romanticized domain for spiritual seekers like ourselves. Yet this perspective, in my opinion, misses a key point. Metaphysics, whether you acknowledge it or not, quietly but powerfully shapes your daily life, your worldview, and your choices. What you assume about free will, illusion or reality, determines how responsible and capable you feel. How you define identity, fixed, fluid, or purely biological, shapes how you see yourself and relate to others. And whether you believe meaning is built into the universe or invented by humans deeply affects how you seek purpose and respond to suffering. If you believe consciousness is merely a byproduct of matter, your approach to life, death, and subjective experience will differ dramatically from someone who views consciousness as a fundamental aspect of reality. If you assume reality is random and devoid of pattern, your tolerance for chaos and your search for order will be different from someone who sees an underlying design or some form of interconnectedness. Most individuals don't consciously choose these foundational beliefs. They inherit them from their past, their culture, education, and personal experiences as they go through life, internalizing them as self-evident truths to live by. This is precisely why one of the bigger questions, is metaphysics science or spirituality, is just not the correct question here. It is neither. Instead, it is the pursuit of information that informs both, providing the conceptual framework within which both scientific and spiritual endeavors operate. The real divide isn't science versus spirituality. It's between ideas we've thought through extensively and assumptions that have influenced us heavily. Metaphysics is not a doctrine you simply adopt, like a new theory or a belief system. It's more like a realization that slowly dawns on you, the awareness that you've been living within its intricate web of architecture all along. Every time you ponder the meaning of life, every moment you question the ultimate fate of consciousness, every instance you feel that reality, as presented, doesn't fully explain itself. That is metaphysics gently tapping you on the shoulder. It doesn't demand belief. It simply asks for your attention, your thoughtful engagement. It invites you to look beyond the surface, to question the unquestioned, and to explore the very ground of your being and knowing. I believe metaphysics belongs neither exclusively to scientists nor to us as mystics. It belongs to anyone honest enough to acknowledge the limits of our current explanations, to feel the persistent pull of deeper questions, and to embrace the inherent human drive for understanding. What do you think about all of this? Do you sense a subtle metaphysical hum beneath the noise of everyday life? Or do you believe we have little control and remain unaffected by the forces around us? If you're not watching on TV, share your thoughts in the comments. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And remember to pause, breathe, and observe your world. See you in the next one, Mystics.